Really, really, it's very simple. Spirit and matter are one. And what that really means is that human and divine are one. The spiritual path and the human path cannot be divided or separated in any way whatsoever, because the spiritual is in the human and the human is in the spiritual, because spirit and matter are one. And as long as we carry around an idea that we seeking to escape our human experience, in spirituality, because the human experience somehow is too painful, too dark, too antagonistic, there's too much suffering. Well, all of these things are true. It's just that they're not too painful. There's not too much suffering. Because as long as we think there's too much, it's too much for me, I can't bear it, then we seek to separate ourselves from it. And the obvious solution, after we've tried all of the other human solutions, which are addiction or distraction in some way, after those have been exhausted, so comes the spiritual journey. And so the spiritual journey is imbued with this idea that somehow, if we can kind of escape or transcend the human condition filled with its suffering, then everything will be okay. And there is a deep flaw in this approach. And yet, that's not to say there's a right and a wrong, because, if we search in the transcendent way, if you like, of moving away from our suffering into the spiritual, what we call the spiritual realm, by and by, with grace, something is missing. It can be a very detached place. The awakened but doesn't recognize the human condition place. Some call that bypass, the bypass way. And the way of detachment that's, says, the human condition is just irrelevant on the spiritual journey. Misses something very valuable, misses a juicy, almost integral, holistic. I don't use that word lightly because it's a messy word, really, that means a lot to many people. And what I mean by that is a fully integrated, as I've said before, merging, melting, integration, reunionified spirit and matter. When spirit enters matter, this is what I wrote a poem about once. When truth enters us, it starts to heal us, but first it shakes up all the poison. First it starts to dissolve all of the false. So when spirit enters matter, but spirit is already imbued in matter. Spirit and matter are one thing. There's no separation apart from the idea, the mental idea. Yeah, these things are separate. But still, spirit enters matter The light, the recognition of spirit enters matter. The light enters the darkness. And so the journey begins of the reunion of all that seemed so separate. And this is surely the juiciest part of spirituality, and it may be the hardest part, but all the meditating and all of the mantras and all of the, the what is it, seeking awakening, through methods and practices, sort of get you to a certain place, and they do get you to they have their benefit, they have their good positive side, but still, something is usually lacking, and there's a great benefit for the integration of spirituality and our psychology. One without the other can be lopsided. Psychology is all about the self. Yeah, it's all about who I've become, the wounds that I've carried, the grievances, the traumas, the conditioning, the self, the ego, the growth over time in a cultural sense, in a familial sense, in a societal sense, and so if it's just psychology on the level of self, then it ends up just sort of almost going round and round and round and round and round on a wheel, trying to fix itself, the self that seeks to fix itself, the endless fixing. And that doesn't really go anywhere apart from round and round and round. And we see that written in, I don't know if you've done any therapy, we see it in some of the worst aspects of psychiatry, where you just end up with a psychiatrist or something for 20 years, just talking about the stories, and maybe there's some benefit in that. I don't know. I don't think so. It depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for pain relief, maybe that would work. But if you're looking for something deeper, an awakening that's deeper, it probably won't really work. And then on the other hand, the sort of spirituality without the grit of the human experience, without the dirt, the shadow, the wound, that still lives in us, even if we're spiritually inclined. Even you can meditate and go to the ashram and go to India and all of these kind of do self-inquiry and stuff. But if this darkness is still there, if the self is still hurting and wounded and carrying grievances and pains and troubles and angers and rages from the childhood, then the chances are you're not going to be able to meditate your way out of that one. That's why this integration, this blending, this melding of the two things, of the spirituality and the psychology of us. Because make no mistake, the psychology of us is very important. We are who we've become on the level of self. We are that. The ruts that have forged us on the anvil of our experience are here. They're here right now. They're here. So one has to, value them, recognize them, see them. That's why awareness is so beautiful. The awareness of spirituality sees the ruts that have been carved into the self. Then you've got something, yeah? Then the light, really the light of awareness, that is, starts to shine on the darkness of the wounds and the ruts and the grievances and all of these patterns that have been formed into us. Then you've got something, almost something to work with, because you can see yourself, yeah? That's where the kind of relationship is, and it is a relationship of a spirituality, and a psychology, and that relationship will be like an ever moving sort of dance if you like, for really potentially quite a long time. And sometimes it might have its emphasis in spirituality, if you like, or practices, or self-inquiry, or meditation, or ritual, or any of these kind of things. Seeking the highest aspects of ourselves, reaching for the light, reaching for the highest spiritual quality that we can have. And that's beautiful. And then sometimes it means really attending to the psychology, really attending, really getting into the shadow, really getting down into the dirt, but where the lotus has its roots, getting down into the bowels of the human experience. What has really gone on? What is the pain caused by? What is the suffering? To enter that, to clean it out, to detox that, to penetrate the shadow, to look at the patterns, but not just look at them from empty awareness. Sometimes you need to actually do something about those patterns. Get into catharsis, get into some therapy, get into some body work that kind of pushes you and prods you to the point where you're like, where you scream, where you cry, where you release some of what's been stored up, and to not be frightened of that. That really is useful. And then you can swing the other way. So by and by, this relationship from swinging one side to the other side starts to even itself out, and eventually it becomes one thing. Spirit and matter, one thing. Spirituality and psychology, one thing. This is a beautiful dance, but to embrace both, makes so much sense to me. It's an intelligence that starts arising, because then there's the harmony of us. Then we're in harmony, an integrated, holistic, harmonious human being moving in the world through, in their body, in the feeling sense, in the clarity of mind, spirit connected to the heavens, roots into the earth. No greater blessing, but it comes from attending to both sides, because there are no two sides, but they both sides need addressing in some way. I'll say no more. Thank you so much for watching.